Welcome to Crafty Chemist Designs. Today I have a great project for you. But first, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so that you are alerted every time I drop a new video. On to the project. This video is part of a monthly card making hop hosted by BD Crafts and More. Monochromatic is the theme for March 2026. Find more inspiration in the videos linked below. For this month's hop, I created this beautiful quilt card that has been embossed to make it look like it has been quilted. I used green from my monochromatic theme for St. Patrick's Day, but I also created this beautiful card in pinks with a more detailed embossing. Let's start off by cutting the card front. Here I'm using a solid color that is soft seafoam green. And I cut it at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to put it onto the basic white card base that is an A2 size, so the finished size of the card will be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm adding adhesive to this piece of cardstock for the card front. And now I'm going to just put it on the card base evenly, so that it's not sticking out on any side. So got a nice color on the front, and then on the inside it's white, so you can stamp a sentiment. Next, let's start working on the decorations. First, you will need a piece of solid colored cardstock. I'm using Mossy Meadow, and I'm going to cut it at 1 7/8. And I'm going to be making these into squares. So you need 4 squares that are 1 7/8 inches. The 1 7/8 is sort of the medium line that's right before the 2-inch mark on your cutter. So 1 7/8, it's not the small line immediately beside the 2, but the next medium line beside that. And you need 4 of these squares. These are going to be the base of your quilt blocks. I recommend a dark color cardstock and choose a light color card base, like I use that soft seafoam. Okay, here I'm cutting a square that is 4 inches by 4 inches. This is Old Olive. And this square serves as sort of the base of your quilt block. So we're going to be putting the decoration, the quilt pieces, on top of that square. And it's really important that you use this as a separate square, and you'll see why later. Since the theme was monochromatic, I chose this piece of designer series paper from the Nature Walk paper pack because I thought it had so many nice colors of kind of greens. And I'm cutting these at 1 5/8. Okay, so this one, it's the medium line right past the 1/2 inch mark. So again, you need 4 of these. You'll see I'm going to be cutting more than 4, but that's because I'm trying to get at least 1 of each of the colors in this ombre. If you are just cutting random pieces of designer series paper, you need 2 pieces of designer series paper that are the same, and then you need 2 other squares that are different from each other. Okay, so 2 pieces that are the same, and then a different piece and a different piece. So really 3 different colors or designs. And these are all 1 5/8 inch squares. So now I'm going to take a look at these and try and find the pieces that I want to use. So I select those as my 2 pieces that are the same. And then I'm choosing that sort of darker color green, almost peacock, and then the lighter color sort of Old Olive. Okay, so again, 2 that are the same and then 2 different ones. The 2 that are the same, you want to cut in half diagonally. And what I do is I line them up on my cutting board and just line up the 2 points right along that trench. Let me show you how to do it again. You'll also notice that I start my blade inside the square. I feel like if you start above or below the square and you push the blade up, it kind of scrunches up the corners. Now on the other 2 pieces, you are going to want to cut them in half diagonally, just like you did with the previous one. But on these ones, you want to then cut those pieces in half again. And so what I'm doing, as you can see, is I line up the bottom on one of the straight lines on my cutting board there. So I'm lining up the flat part along the line and then placing the tip of that triangle right in the trough. Okay, so now you have 4 pieces from there. And now let's do the same with the third design. Again, cut it in half diagonally, and then cut those pieces in half again. And I'm lining up the bottom with the line on my cutting board, and then lining up the point of the triangle right in the trough. You really, to be a good quilt square, you want to get these as precisely as possible. I am a quilter, so I know that you want your points to sort of match up. You want to have really nice points. Okay, so now you'll have 4 of those pieces. Now the fun begins when we are going to create the design of our quilt block. So I take the larger pieces and sort of line them up, and I'm going to attach one of them to the solid cardstock base. So just select one of them, and then I'm using my adhesive and attaching it. So you're going to put this on the solid cardstock, make it go sort of diagonally across half of it. Leave a little bit of a border. And now what you want to do is take one of each of the smaller pieces that you cut. It takes me a second to figure out how to place these. Yeah, there you go. They will fit together perfectly. So that's how I'm going to put them together. But then I realized I put that one down a little bit too far, so I'm moving it up a little bit to make room for the other 2 pieces. Now I'm having trouble figuring out the direction for those. There we go. Okay, once I figured out how I want to place it, I'm going to put adhesive on it and adhere it down. And I'm trying to get an even space of the cardstock showing from below. And now I'm adding the third piece in the open space. And again, you want a little bit of the cardstock to show underneath. So I'm spending a little bit of time trying to get it just right. I am this picky when I do my quilts also. Okay, now you're going to make 3 other squares exactly the same. And so you're going to put your little pieces in the same order for all 4 of the squares. I know it looks like the patterns are different on the completed card, but that's just a trick of the orientation of the squares. So you see on this one, I used the light green sort of on the right side there. Okay, and then the darker peacock color on the bottom. So I'm just repeating that for the second time. It's really amazing the different designs you can make just by the way you orient these squares. And that's, I think, the beauty of quilting, and bringing that to paper crafting is so fun. I don't know why I don't make more quilt-like card designs since I'm a quilter. Okay, again, I'm making my third square, repeating the same pattern, trying to space them all out so they look similar. And I want the borders around those triangles to be as even as possible. Okay, I'm now putting this darker peacock. And I really recommend that for this, you want one, what I would call strong piece that's going to be making the design. And in my card, that dark peacock piece is what I think our eyes are going to be drawn to. So I would recommend maybe picking two pieces that are, more neutral background color, and then like a nice statement piece for your quilt blocks here. And you'll see once we put these together what I'm talking about, because that darker piece is what makes sort of the design. Okay, this is the last piece. So I have 4 squares that are exactly the same. Fitting that last piece right in there. Okay. So now we are going to be adding these to that larger 4 by 4 inch square. And let's look at the arrangement of these. So let's put it on the 4 by 4 square so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So I'm putting the first piece down with that peacock, the darker peacock, towards the bottom, towards the south. The one on the right, I'm putting that darker peacock facing, I guess, towards the west. The one on the bottom right, the dark piece is facing up north, and then the one on the bottom left is facing, I guess, east. So can you see how those dark peacock colors make sort of the fan design? And that's what you're looking at. And like I said, that's why I think you should have one piece of the designer series paper that is really a strong design. And so I'm going to, add adhesive to these and make sure they're kind of, centered, so you have a nice spacing around, all 4 sides. So I put 2 down. Let's get this one. And as you're placing it, make sure that you have them oriented in the right way to make the correct design. I'm going for sort of a fan or a pinwheel look. Let's place the last one. Okay, and then put this right there. And again, you can see that all I'm doing is I just twisted those squares around, 90 degrees each time. So get them how I like. Try and get as equal a spacing between as you can. Now you can stop right here, but I've decided to put like a little pinwheel center. And this piece is a 1-inch circle. Truthfully, I think if I did it again, I might make this a little bit smaller. I thought it took up a little bit too much room, but I like it how it is, but I really think maybe just slightly smaller. But I didn't have a circle that was a little bit smaller. And then this piece should be like 3/4 of an inch. I think this is a little bit smaller piece. And this is just a center like of a flower die. So that's what I use. It's actually not a circle die. It's the center of a flower die, but it was about the right size. Okay, so I'm going to layer this in the center so that it looks kind of like a pinwheel. You know those pinwheels that you had as a kid that you could blow and they would, spin around? Like a lot of times you have them maybe on the 4th of July or something. That's what this is supposed to represent. This would be like where the mechanism went through to attach it to your stick or whatever. Okay, like I said, you can put this on or leave it off. Now what you need to do is find an embossing folder that you like. I chose this embossing folder because I felt like it looked like stitching on a quilt. Like if you just did some nice long stitches. And we're going to put that 4x4 square right into the embossing folder. And this is what I said why you needed that 4x4 square to be separate from your card front. Like you can't do this card directly on your card base because you need to be able to put this kind of quilt piece through your embossing folder. This is a 3D embossing folder. But again, you can use whatever kind of design embossing folder you have, something that will look nice. But look at that. Look at how it looks like I quilted that quilt block. And that's what makes this card so amazing. And then we're just going to now attach it to the card front. I am going to use extra adhesive, you could see on here, because I find that when you try to attach embossed, papers that sometimes the adhesive can get stuck in the nooks and crannies of the embossed piece and not really stick to the card base. So, okay, and I am going to put it up towards the top, leave a little bit of space at the bottom for my sentiment. And since it's nearly St. Patrick's Day, I'm going to stamp Happy St. Patrick's Day. That is from an old retired Close to My Heart set that I have. And I'm going to use Mossy Meadow because that is the ink color that is the color of that 4x4 square. Or no, that's the color of the small 1 7/8 inch squares. And I'm going to stamp it right down on here. Okay, I didn't really get a great image on there. The top of it didn't show, so I decided I'm going to cover that up and use a piece of old olive. And then I'm going to stamp the Mossy Meadow right on a piece of the soft seafoam green that I used for the card front. So let's see if I can get a better image here. I'm going to make sure I kind of make sure the top is pushed down a little bit. Okay, I'm going to stamp on there, and you see, you're not really supposed to rock these stamps, but I did to make sure the top is complete. And so then we'll just add this sentiment right onto that cardstock that I made. And I think that piece is 4 inches by maybe 3/4 of an inch. I think it's going to depend on what sentiment you put on there. And then the soft seafoam is a little bit smaller than that. It's like a 1/2 inch by 3 3/4. Okay, and then there you have your completed card. Here is my embossed quilted card in greens for St. Patrick's Day. But I also created this pink one to celebrate spring and to say goodbye to the 2024-2026 color Pretty in Pink. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the project. You can purchase any of the products I used in the video at my website, thecraftychemist.stampinup.net. I have a Facebook business page, Crafty Chemist Designs, where I go live every Sunday at 7 p.m. Central Time. I also have a Facebook VIP group called The Crafty Chemist Presents Stampin' Up, where you can share your artwork and ask questions and have a good time. You can also find me at Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Crafty Chemist Designs. My blog is periodicallycrafty.blogspot.com.